Imagine opening a secret report in 1943 and reading words that made your blood run cold. German intelligence officers stared at numbers they couldn't believe. American factories were building planes so fast that it seemed impossible. One factory was completing a bomber every single hour. Another was launching 3 ships every day. The Axis powers had just discovered something terrifying. They were being buried alive by American production, and there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. In the spring of 1943, something changed in the minds of Axis military planners. German and Japanese intelligence gathered reports from spies, prisoners, and aerial reconnaissance. What they found seemed like propaganda or lies, but the numbers kept coming back the same. America was producing planes at rates that seemed physically impossible. In 1939, the American Army ranked 39th in the world. That's smaller than Portugal's army. The U.S. had fewer than 200,000 soldiers, and many of them were still using horses to pull artillery. The Air Corps had only about 1,700 planes total, and many were outdated. But America had something else. It had massive factories that had been sitting mostly quiet during the Great Depression. It had iron mines, oil fields, and aluminum plants. It had engineers who knew how to build things fast, and it had a workforce of millions waiting for jobs. President Franklin Roosevelt saw what was coming. While most Americans wanted to stay out of Europe's war, Roosevelt knew the country needed to prepare. He called for America to become the great arsenal of democracy. Most people thought this was just a nice speech. They had no idea what was about to happen.
On December 7, 1941, Japanese planes attacked Pearl Harbor. In a few hours, everything changed. The very next day, Congress declared war. Factory whistles blew across America. Plants that had been making toys, cars, and refrigerators received urgent orders. Start making weapons immediately. And American industry did something remarkable. It transformed almost overnight. The government created something called the War Production Board. This group had enormous power to tell factories what to make and when to make it. Car companies stopped building cars and started building tanks. Toy factories started making bomb parts. Clothing factories began sewing parachutes in uniforms. President Roosevelt set goals that seemed crazy. He wanted 60,000 planes in 1942 and 125,000 in 1943. He wanted 120,000 tanks. People thought these numbers were impossible, but American workers were determined to prove everyone wrong. Building weapons isn't like flipping a switch. Factories needed to be redesigned. Workers needed training. Supply chains had to be created from scratch. But something amazing happened across America. Millions of people flooded into factories. Women who had never worked outside their homes became welders and riveters. The famous Rosie the Riveter posters showed a strong woman with her sleeves rolled up saying, "We can do it." This wasn't just propaganda, it was real life. African Americans moved from the South to northern cities for factory jobs. Older workers who had retired came back. Teenagers too young for military service worked in plants. By 1943, more than 6 million women were working in war industries. These workers didn't just show up for paychecks. They believed every rivet, every weld, and every bolt could save an American soldier's life. Factories ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There were 3 shifts of workers, so the machines never stopped. The phrase, "the home front," meant something real. Everyone felt like they were part of the war effort. Now let's talk about those airplane numbers that terrified the Axis. In 1939, America produced fewer than 3,000 military planes. That's less than 10 planes per day for the whole country. By 1944, America was building more planes in a single month than Japan built during the entire war. One factory became legendary, Ford's Willow Run plant in Michigan. Ford had never built a plane before the war, but the company knew how to use assembly lines. Ford took the B-24 Liberator bomber, which was incredibly complex, and figured out how to mass produce it. The Willow Run plant was enormous. The main building stretched over a mile long. Inside, there were 2 parallel assembly lines that met at a 90-degree turn. Workers built the planes in sections and then moved those sections to the final assembly area. By 1944, Ford was completing one B-24 bomber every 63 minutes. Think about that. Every hour, a complete heavy bomber rolled out of the factory and took off from the runway. At the plant's peak in April 1944, they built 453 planes in less than 20 days. Ford built almost 9,000 B-24s total, making it the most produced heavy bomber in history.
Germany's U-boats were sinking Allied ships in the Atlantic Ocean at an alarming rate. If America couldn't get troops and supplies across the ocean, the Axis could win just by cutting off the flow. Enter the Liberty Ship program and a man named Henry Kaiser. Kaiser had never built a ship in his life before 1940, but he understood construction and mass production from building dams and bridges. Liberty ships were simple cargo vessels designed to be built fast and carry massive amounts of supplies. They weren't fancy or beautiful. President Roosevelt himself called them dreadful-looking objects, but they worked. Kaiser applied assembly line thinking to shipbuilding. Instead of building each ship from the bottom up with one crew, his workers built entire sections in different parts of the shipyard. Then giant cranes lifted these sections into place and welded them together. The results were stunning. Early Liberty ships took about 230 days to build. By 1943, Kaiser's shipyards were completing them in an average of just 42 days. One ship, the Robert E. Peary, was launched just 4 days and 15 hours after its keel was laid. This was partly a publicity stunt, but it showed what was possible. By 1943, American shipyards were launching 3 Liberty ships every single day. In total, America built over 2,700 Liberty ships. The Axis simply couldn't sink them fast enough. Detroit, Michigan was called the Motor City because of its car factories. During the war, it became America's tank factory. The Detroit Arsenal tank plant used the same assembly line methods that had built millions of cars. The M4 Sherman tank became the workhorse of American armored forces. Was it the best tank in the world? No. German tanks often had better armor and bigger guns, but America could build Shermans faster than Germany could build anything. At peak production, American factories were completing a Sherman tank roughly every 10 minutes. Think about that scale. 10 minutes per tank, running 24 hours a day. This created a philosophy that would help win the war. Quantity matters more than perfection. If you lose one Sherman, there are 10 more behind it. If those 10 get destroyed, 20 more are on ships crossing the Atlantic. The Axis powers, especially Germany, focused on building smaller numbers of superior weapons. But America understood that overwhelming numbers could win battles just as well as superior technology. By the war's end, America had built almost 50,000 Sherman tanks. German officers captured late in the war often said the same thing. We knew we couldn't win when we saw how many tanks you had. All these statistics about planes, ships, and tanks can make you forget something important. Real people built every single one of them. Inside factories, the work was hard and often dangerous. Welding produced intense heat and bright light that could damage eyes. Heavy machinery could crush or cut workers who made mistakes. The noise was deafening, with riveting guns hammering constantly. But workers took pride in their jobs.
Many factories hung signs showing how many planes or ships they'd completed. Workers knew their sons, brothers, and husbands were fighting overseas. Every plane they finished might protect someone they loved. Women made up a huge part of the workforce. More than 6 million women worked in war industries by 1943. They learned to operate heavy machinery, read complex blueprints, and work with dangerous materials. Many faced discrimination and were paid less than men for the same work, but they proved they could do these jobs just as well. African American workers also made major contributions despite facing terrible racism. Many unions refused to accept black members. Housing near factories was often segregated. But black workers flooded into defense industries anyway, earning better wages than they'd ever seen in the South. Everyone at home contributed however they could. Families collected scrap metal, old rubber, and used cooking grease for the war effort. People planted victory gardens to grow their own food so more could be sent to soldiers. Even children collected tinfoil and saved pennies to buy war bonds.
By mid-1943, the truth was undeniable. America's industrial power had tipped the balance of the war. The D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944, proved it beyond doubt. American and Allied forces landed more than 150,000 troops in France in a single day. The ships that carried them, the planes that protected them, and the weapons they used were mostly American-made. German soldiers looked up at the sky and saw formations of American bombers so large they darkened the sun. One German officer wrote in his diary, "We can shoot down all the planes we want, but there are always more, always more." Japanese cities came under attack from B-29 superfortresses, huge bombers that could fly higher and farther than anything Japan could build. The Japanese simply had no defense against them. The supply lines stretching from America to Europe and the Pacific seemed endless. American factories sent so much material overseas that enemy soldiers couldn't believe the scale. They found American cigarettes, chocolate bars, and equipment scattered across battlefields. Everything America sent to its troops seemed abundant and new. By 1945, American factories were producing more than half of all industrial goods in the entire world. The Axis powers had been buried by this production. They didn't lose because their soldiers weren't brave. They lost because they couldn't match American industry. When the war ended in 1945, American industry had built almost 300,000 military planes, nearly 90,000 tanks, and thousands of ships. These numbers represented the greatest industrial effort in human history. The victory changed America forever. Soldiers came home to a country that was now the world's strongest economy. The factories that had built bombers went back to building cars, refrigerators, and washing machines. The skills workers had learned building weapons helped them get good jobs in peacetime. The GI Bill helped millions of veterans go to college or buy homes. American technology that had been developed for the war, like radar and jet engines, became the foundation for new industries. Historians often say that World War II was won on the factory floor as much as on the battlefield. The soldiers who fought were incredibly brave, but they were backed by millions of workers who never fired a shot. These workers built the weapons, the ships, the planes, and the supplies that made victory possible. Henry Kaiser said it best when asked about Liberty ships. They said we couldn't build a ship that fast. We did it anyway. That spirit of "we'll find a way" defined America's war effort. Sometimes the greatest battles aren't won by soldiers with rifles. They're won by workers with wrenches, welders with torches, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. In 1943, the world realized that America's factories were just as powerful as its armies, and that realization
changed the course of history.